Welcome back to the podcast. This is my campaign podcast, and today I have on a returning guest, Charlie McElvy. It's been a while, Charlie, since we taped. Actually, it's been 3 years almost exactly. Tell the fans a little bit about yourself and what you've been up to.
Oh my gosh. For the last 3 years, now I got to synopsize that in like what, 30 seconds?
You got about 30 seconds. This is
Yeah,
a
okay.
short form podcast.
Charlie McElvy, great job on the pronunciation. I appreciate that very much, Roland. Yeah, so the writer and publisher of Spider Squirrel and Trash Panda, which has become my flagship book. I've done a lot of other books, published other people's works, like I'm publishing Stray for Vito Del Santi and Sean Isaacs, as well as Night Care with Scott Fogg. So having fun with that. But yeah, the last few years, that's been getting Spider Squirrel out there. American Yakuza has been a hot commodity for me. That was my first NSFW book, so mature audiences book. Doing that with my co-creators Chris Moses and Anthony Stokes. Stokes has become a really good friend of mine over the last couple of years. That's been really good. So we're looking to collect that one soon. I'm excited. And then yeah, I just launched my first anthology. So really excited about this. I already have the second one in the works. In fact, I have four completed pages, and Sean Isaacs, who I mentioned, is doing the main story that I wrote, which is a 24 pager that'll be ending a bunch of anthological walks through that universe. That one's coming later this year. So I'm I'm glad to be back. Thanks for having me back on. I'm sorry we missed each other for the last 3 years.
Hey, I've tried several times. I don't know how many emails I've sent you out in the last 3 years, but
Dude,
no,
oh,
I'm glad to have you back because I really like your work.
you.
Let's talk about this campaign.
Okay.
It's Vagabond Nowhere Man. What inspired the idea? Because it's kind of unique of following an immortal wanderer across human history.
Yeah, like a lot of 80s kids, 90s kids, I enjoyed, even though I was born in the 70s, I enjoyed Highlander, the TV show. I loved the movie series for as bad as they got. I watched all of them. And that was one part of it. The other part is recently Boom started doing the Berserker series. Now, before they did the comic series with Keanu Reeves, I read the book Elsewhere with him and China Miéville. And the idea of an immortal character kind of being out there doing whatever he does is cool. Now, Berserker is what it is. It's a lot like it sounds. If you don't know it, it's this immortal going through the world. Energy builds up every once in a while. He's got to blow up and release it. Where does that energy come from? You have to read the books. But he dies and is reborn out of this cocoon and egg thing. It's a fascinating book. I highly recommend go read it. It's bizarre as hell, which is also fun. But that was just like the little nudge I needed to start moving down the story that's tinkered in my brain for a long time. Because also, like 80s, 90s kids, I enjoyed Quantum Leap. I always loved the idea of this guy going into different parts of history or different parts of people's lives or whatever, and either intervening or fixing history, as it were, so that things were the way to right the ship, so to speak. And then Vandal Savage is another character that was a small inspiration here. Even though he's a villain, you think about Vandal Savage and the opportunities he had. Now I know DC's painted him up as Genghis Khan or other conquerors over the years. That's cool. Marsias is not unlike that in a sense. He's not a conqueror, though. In fact, he's mildly apathetic, which is something I wanted to bring to this character because I asked myself the question, how would I be after 80,000 years of life, right? So this guy is born in what we would modern day we'd call Thrace, but he was born before Thrace was a country. So how he becomes immortal, I don't get into. How he gets from place to place, I don't get into. We want to leave a little mystery, a little enigmatic nature to this, but he gets to either intervene or participate in history in all these different ways. Mythology, there's a great story in there from Sean Wood, Sean from Recon or and the Little One or The Fog Within. He's an indie comics creator. Sean's a local guy and he did a cool take on Excalibur. And I won't spoil it. I think it's a really fun take, but he put Excalibur into kind of a here's where the myth came from. Likewise, Fred Schwartz and Stan Yak did a story around Vlad Tepes, who obviously a historical character. How did the Dracula mythology begin? So a lot of fun takes here. I took one myself where I wrote a story about the Marquis de Lafayette when he came through my hometown, Fredericksburg, on his farewell tour from President Monroe. And while he was here, actually in Fredericksburg, there was a mild, and nobody really knows about it much. You can Google it. But there was a mild presidential scandal that year. So the election took place from November to basically, or September, I think, until basically the middle of December. So that because everything was delivered by wagons and stuff. So it took a long time to tally votes and get everybody's votes, even across the few states that there were. But there was a winner, a clear winner, and yet he never became president. And so it's a fun little scandal I kind of tease up and play like it's a little bit more than it is. So anyway, it just gave us a lot of fun to tinker with history and do all kinds of fun things. And again, we talked about off the show, it gave me an opportunity to work with a lot of great creators.
Yeah,
Um,
who are some of them? And tell us a little bit about them.
so Chris Moses and Sean Wood, who I already mentioned, Chris Moses is actually live on Kickstarter with his Saturn Effect. Chris and I worked together on American Yakuza. So I asked Chris, "Do you want to do a story here?" And he was like, "Yeah, I got a cool one. What about an Atlantis story?" And I was like, "Let's go." And so we have a fun little Atlantis story from Chris Moses. And then Anthony Stokes, also my other co-creator for American Yakuza, he did one around the Tulsa Massacre. Again, emotional, nice, a good story, kind of drags you into the middle of this stuff. Ron Mars does a story with Will Conrad on art, and Ron did a great story about the American West, early days, frontier West, with The Last of the Buffalo. Now, buffalo are still around, but they're not free ranging as much. I think there's one location with 1 million acres of free range for them, and that's about it. But that was a really cool story too. Just people that I either have a great deal of respect for, good friends, or just someone I really thought I read a book and said I wanted to work with this person. Those are just ways I picked who I worked with there.
I'm curious, are there any special kind of cool perks with the campaign this time around?
Yeah, so what we're doing, so the three covers, so it will be available as a soft cover, which is the more of we'll call it a floppy, if you will, even though it's not as floppy as you would think. But we're going to do a skinny hardcover version, and you'll be able to choose your dust jackets if you want. It'll come with the main cover dust jacket, but we are going to have add-on dust jackets. So if you really love, for example, Nitho Diaz's cover where Marsias is sitting on a throne of skulls, you can order that dust jacket and take off the other one and put that one on if you want or whatever. So that's really fun. We didn't go too bizarre this time because it is the first anthology and I didn't want to burden the campaign with coins or other tchotchkes that we have done in the past. I just want to keep it clean and simple. Whether that's good or bad, we'll find out. But I just wanted to focus on the book itself because I think the creators that are there and the stories they've told are worth their weight, right? We'll let the book speak for itself.
How did they get assigned the stories, or did they come up with concepts on their own, or how did that kind of work out? And while you're doing that, why is the anthology so long? Right? That broke it down into something smaller.
Yeah. So I'll answer the second question first. I wanted it to have the weight of history, metaphorically as well as realistically. Now, it's not that big of a book. It'll be 128 pages, I think, when it's all said and done. So it's a decent sized tome, but it's not voluminous. It's not like the Iliad or something like that. But yeah, I just wanted it to have a lot of good opportunity to flesh the character out and give people different stories to take. And that's the other things I was looking for a good variety of stories. Now, as far as how they got assigned, I created a series Bible, if you will, lowercase b, where there are some limitations that you can and can't do, right? So there are things that absolutely encourage you to go off the rails a little bit. There's some things that I've actually had to correct. And, oh, he wouldn't do that. Or, yeah, that's not a good use of his whatever. And two stories actually did get turned down because it wasn't reconcilable with the nature of the Bible that we created. And so for consistency's sake, those stories, unfortunately, while good, just weren't Marsias stories. But other than that, it was pretty much free reign. I said you can go through anywhere in history. You can go future if you want to. We'll just call that future history, right? You can stay in the modern day. Doesn't matter. The time is unlimited.
A lot of latitude and what they could do.
100%. I said you can explore everything. You can explore worlds. You can explore if we have a thing on Mars. You can go and Matt Damon him if you want to. You can do whatever. I said there's a lot of limitations. He doesn't have any significant superpowers outside of just being immortal and he's inhumanly strong. But other than that, he's another guy. So play with morals. If you wanted to explore sexuality, if you wanted to explore brutality or human emotions, if you wanted him to suffer grief and loss, while I mentioned earlier he's fairly apathetic, that's through time. Like Chris Moses, when he did his Atlantis story, he was still young. He was maybe a couple of dozen millennia old at that point, perhaps. So he's still learning to deal with human emotions at that point. So would he cry? Maybe. So it was fun. It was just a neat way to explore not just history, but humanity. And yeah.
This is an unfair question, but it's like
Uh-oh.
trying to pick your favorite child.
Yeah.
But was there a story in particular that you thought, oh, this turned out better than I thought it might
Oh,
be?
yeah. Yeah. And I hate to say yeah, because everybody did great work. So I will caveat that. But the first story that I got back completed was Nander Fox Schaefer's. And his man, I read the script obviously before it went to art. And then it was reading the script is one thing. When I got the art from Julia, and I'm going to butcher his last name or her last name, sorry, but an Italian artist, it's watercolors. It deals with Marsias today and reflecting back on the Battle of Gettysburg. So the story actually takes place in the Gettysburg era. And it was my wife and I both actually teared up reading it. It was that impactful. It was a beautifully done story around a gruesome battle over the horrid nature of our country splitting itself and dividing over things like slavery and free state laws and stuff like that. And just really seeing the way he made it so personal and human. I love it. I loved the story. And the art was absolutely bonkers good. It's this loose watercolors. The ending panel I want to do as a print and put it on my wall. It's just beautiful. So yes, that's probably my favorite story. And that's no disrespect or slight to anybody. That's just that one that just hit me just right emotionally.
Do you want to continue this again sometime?
I do, and it seems like some of these guys do too, because I've already been asked, "Are you going to do another one?" I want to
So
do
you
more.
created your own Frankenstein, basically.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. I'm sure we'll run out of history space at some point. For now, we touched on the American frontier west. We touched on the early post-Revolutionary War era. We touched on, Atlantis from 80,000 years ago or whatever it was. So we've touched on a lot of different sparse places, the 1700s, naval, when the British Navy was dealing with pirates and stuff like that. So Scott Fogg has a fun story there. So we've kind of been all over, but we haven't covered anything yet, right? So that's the nice thing about history is we can go back as far as we want to. As long as Homo sapiens was around, this guy could have been around.
You've been doing this creator stuff for a long time now.
Yep.
What would you give advice to indie creators that are just starting out?
Yeah, it's funny. We talk about this. Dean and Vito, we sit down sometimes and have a bourbon or something at Baltimore, and we talk about stuff like this. And I think the one thing I keep sitting back on and saying is finish something. I think that's the most important thing is as an indie creator, it's easy to get hypercritical and to limit yourself because you want it to be like this perfect. But sometimes good enough has to be good enough. And you got to let go of perfection because that's an unachievable thing anyway, right? So make it as best you can with the time you have and the resources you have, but finish something. It's what do they say? Shit or get off the pot. That's really the best advice I can give an indie creator today. Good enough is good enough sometimes. I'll give you a great example because of where he's come. Stokes, his first book that I read, Decay, was really good. The writing was really good. The story was deep and very psychological and personal. The art was but it was good enough. And it's still successful, still one of his better sellers. He did Intrusive Thoughts after that, and I thought he took his writing to that next level. And while the art didn't increase commensurately much with it, the writing was that much better, and he kept putting out that kind of good consistent. Now you can't open a Stokes book and not have beautiful art, whether it's his current, and I forget the name now, my brain just spaced out, but whether it's his football book or So My Girlfriend is a Cybernetic Assassin or whatever. You pick Anthony Stokes book off the shelf and you're going to see beautiful art. You're going to read a really good story and it's great. And it's because he didn't try to match Marvel or DC in terms of art right off the bat. He focused on his writing and storytelling, and the art was good, not great. It was certainly passable for what he needed. And then now he can hire anybody he wants to do the art, and he does a great job.
And
I
you've
love working
done
with the guy too. Yeah.
And you've done a lot of campaigns. So what advice you give to somebody that wants to do a campaign?
Oh, man, I think the biggest thing is find a campaign that is out there, either funded or, and it could have ended, it doesn't matter. Look at it and see what they're doing. And when I say look at it, I mean analyze it. And what I've done in the past is I looked at Pat Shan's campaigns, for example, and Space Between, and I've gone and copied and pasted his entire campaign story into a Google Doc and then printed it out. And I did note marginalia, they call it, right? Which us old guys get it, but it's where you write in the edges of the page notes and you circle things and you highlight and really analyze what did he do or they do that seems to work. And also look at the rewards. What kind of rewards were offered? I've seen indie books get out there and there's no, like the biggest mistake is there's no $25 tier. And I think that's egregious. And it sounds, you go, why $25? That's kind of that marker of minimum of backer average that you really want to go for. 25 to $30 is like your good range of potential success on a campaign. But I see all these campaigns, they start with a $5 digital and then they jump right to a $20 book. And then they go to a $100 retailer campaign, a bundle, which retailers don't buy a whole lot of, be honest with you. And I even stopped doing that because I just started distributing with Philbo. I was like, I'll just let retailers get it the classic way. And then they'll go to $150 or $300 original art tier. And it's like, there's nothing in between. And so having a good gradation of $5 digital, $8 digital deluxe, maybe a $10 or $12 physical copy, and then maybe your variant covers, make them exclusive to the campaign, limit them, and then make them 15, $20, whatever you want, but have a $25 tier. I think it's crucial. I think it's absolutely crucial to the success of a campaign. And maybe I'm overstating it, but it works really well to have that there.
Charlie, you get the last word. Any final thoughts?
Thank you. I thank you for having me on, but thank you everybody for listening. And of course, I want to thank every backer that's ever backed even one campaign of mine in history. I'm grateful because indie comics exists today the way it does because of backers like you guys who are watching this that go and check these things out. And all I ask is you don't have to back everything I do, but if you think it's interesting enough, share it. That means a lot to me to just share something. So I appreciate you and thank you very much.
Thank you for joining me, Charlie. It was fun having you on. Thanks again.